Ladies and gentlemen, friends, enemies, commenters, haters, lovers, whatever you may be, thank you very much for tuning back in to the David Sparks Show. And as this Halloween, or weekend before Halloween, I should say, weekend starts, be safe, have a fantastic time, dress how you feel, and stay warm. But I had an email this week. Actually, it was a response to one of my videos. And in the video, I was talking about a reference to some guys from the Truckers for Freedom as part of the shutdown DC march who were on RT News. We're talking, and these guys had talked about they want to get it back to the old America, get America back where she was. And you hear a lot about this, and coming from different conservative circles. And my thoughts were, well, you know, which America, when? You know, there's been a lot of eras in America, not all of them good, certainly. How can we have this ambiguous, you know, what people really want is they want, a lot of people want America to be like Cracker Barrel. But that's besides the point. Let me read you here what this commenter said, and then I'm going to come back and I've got some comments about that pertaining to a lot of my own life experiences. All right. I myself hope when people mention old America means the whole way our local communities could actually depend on each other for help and support without a mandate from government, but rather a mandate of one's own desires to see each other live prosperous and happy lives. I know it's a stretch, but that's what it means to me. And I mean that in terms of responsibility, because it seems when one puts the responsibility of enforcement onto the government, they tend to externalize it from themselves. Like, oh, don't worry about that. Someone gets paid to do that. Know what I mean? You know, Truth Fox 82, you know, I think your response was heartfelt and comes from a desire to get back to a reality in America that is a better one, where people are happier and the society is more functional. And I appreciate anyone who is down with that. But it's still getting back, you know, until you really talk about, you know, you talk about government enforcement, giving enforcement of what? You know, what exactly are we talking about? Basic neighborhood peace and harmony? Yeah, I think that's a responsibility of the general neighbors, because, you know, government can't be everywhere and make everyone get along. But you really need to be more specific, because what ends up happening is it sounds like what you're saying here is everyone just needs to be responsible and take care of themselves. Well, that's really nice, but in a society of 300 million people, first of all, there are people who cannot take care of themselves. We all have to be honest about that. Handicapped, disabled folk who are not able physically to get to the workplace, perform a job, do something that produces income. We have an obligation as a society, as does every society, to take care of those folks. But beyond those folks, the able-bodied, I guess we all have to you know, be specific. You know, I think this personal responsibility meme that we hear a lot, especially in conservative politics, gets back to, I think it's really all a matter of perception. And let me tell you why. We've assumed that large swaths of society are no longer responsible for themselves, interested in being responsible, or doing anything besides sitting at home, collecting checks, watching television. Could this irresponsibility meme really be one of perception? And let me tell you why. I'm going to have a guy, I'm going to interview him Monday night. He's a photographer from the Dayton Daily News in Dayton, Ohio, obviously. Steve Benish, who throughout this big economic downturn in America over the last 5 years, and in the city of Dayton, it really has been going back like 40 years, very similar to a lot of the fortunes of Detroit. In the last 10 years alone, we've had six large General Motors facilities completely out of business. And not only those facilities, but all the related shops that did business with General Motors, such as parts makers. So what we've done, what's happened here is we've had an entire economic infrastructure just completely taken out of the community. And what it's resulted in over these many years is kind of similar to the Detroit area, where you've got some suburbs who are getting by fairly decent, and an inner city that is filled with poor people struggling to get by from paycheck to paycheck, day to day, week to week, month to month, you name it. And because this economic infrastructure has been really yanked away from folks. But Steve Benish, he's been taking these photos, and here's a few of them here I'm going to be showing to him. He's been following guys who basically, and gals, who scrap metal for a living, because there is a large contingent in this city of people who scrap metal day to day for, on a good day, $60 to get by, week to week, day to day, all that. And it's kind of coincided with my own experience. I grew up, born in Dayton, Ohio, lived a large portion of my childhood in eastern Kentucky, where there's some really high poverty rates. Moved back to Dayton, lived in the suburbs, growing in high school, and then years later ended back up in the city, living in the inner city. And I lived in this inner city for like almost 10 years. And the biggest, I had all my perceptions broken. I didn't really have the perception that everyone was irresponsible. Basically, that the city is kind of gritty, and there's certainly some of that. But what I found out living amidst inner city residents, working in the city, in the inner city school district, is that people at least in this city, where everyone has assumed they're irresponsible, everyone's got to hustle. I mean, whether it's some guy who's selling DVDs on the corner that he's downloaded off the internet. I've known ladies who work for the public schools who have side businesses. Many people have side businesses, selling food, home-cooked meals delivered to your home. And they got this gig going on over Facebook while they got another gig going full-time. And I could go through countless examples of this. And essentially, we're in one of these places where Chris Hedges calls an economic disempowerment zone. And what I see, as compared to those damn inner cities, people need to get responsible for themselves. What I see is people totally scrambling all the time to make ends meet, to pay rent, pay for the heat, pay for the electricity, pay for the food, by any means necessary. Unfortunately, any means necessary has been necessitated by our own direction and policy of a government of wanting to ship all of our manufacturing overseas, the infrastructure of the American economy. And so I'm sorry, I think this irresponsible meme has been placed upon in the minds of many in America, basically because it's a complete misperception of reality, because maybe they're living in a bubble and they're not seeing what I see. Man, I see people struggling, and I see people doing whatever it takes to make that jack, to make that next payment, and it's just it's a shame that people think, and it really comes down to 50 years ago, I think a lot of the people who may hold this idea, 50 years ago, any Joe could walk out and get a job same day with decent pay, that you wouldn't have to live a kind of humiliating existence, and oftentimes the much better chance of working in a union environment where he was guaranteed things like health benefits, hours that would not kill him, and if he wanted to work a whole lot of hours, well, you're going to get some double time and overtime pay. And all that is gone. For this whole irresponsibility meme to be true, it would have to be true on an individual basis. But unfortunately, entire cities and entire regions just don't become irresponsible for no reason. People want to have a good life, be happy, have a decent place to live, food in the fridge. It's not that much to ask for. But they don't. This hasn't happened. This has happened on a macro scale because of policies. You may want to go back to a kindler, gentler place and time. But what was a kindler, gentler place and time for some was hell for others, proving that ultimately perception really is not reality. I'm David Sparks. Thank you so much for viewing. Check me out on Facebook. I put the videos there first. Check me out on TYT Nation. I've got a playlist there. The videos go up 2 or 3 times a week. I appreciate everyone for watching. Please keep tuning in. Please share these videos if you like what's going on in them and what's being said. That's the only way I got to get this stuff out there. Take it easy and have a fantastic Halloween weekend. Sayonara.